Hello, everyone. This is Olga from Pracademy, and we are doing a small experiment today, recording an interview with a very close friend of Pracademy, Gerhard Bley. I am pronouncing your name correctly?
Perfect.
Okay, that's great. And he is the CEO of Kavli.
Thank you, Olga. It's a pleasure to be joining this interview, and I look forward to it. We will discuss a lot of important things today.
Yes.
But the background is actually I'm the CEO of Kavli in Sweden and Finland, responsible for that operation. We are a food manufacturer, one of the leading brand companies in this region. In Sweden, we have a turnover of approximately 900 million Swedish crowns. That's about 90 million euro. We are 225 employees, and we have a lot of different brands here. My background is from the FMCG business ago, or for the last 20 years. I've also been involved in other industries and I've been a leader since I was a young person, actually. So I've been 25 years. Worked in the automotive industry and the IT industry as well as the food industry.
Wow. A lot of stuff.
A lot of stuff, yeah. A lot of different stuff.
But the main intake is that we will get to learn a lot about your leadership approach. It is also important to acknowledge that our leadership philosophies change, that we have had different ways of approaching leadership in our lives, and that it is okay to have this adaptability as well as we are improving as human beings, more or less.
Yeah, exactly, and not being too hard on yourself as well, and see that life is a journey, and that you as long as you are curious and interested in developing yourself, you can develop your leadership talents and ability a lot during the journey.
And you have actually named this kind of journey for yourself. You have called this empathetic leadership, or I have no clue how you pronounce this in Swedish, so we keep it in English, right? But right, it's something like empathetic, ledarskap, something like that. Okay,
that's what I call it in Swedish.
So you have even written a book. Sooner or later, the book will be translated into English as well, so that this empathetic leadership approach will be more available to the public. And I'm very curious to get started to ask you some more specific questions in regards to this leadership philosophy. And so let us start with a very existential question, just to keep breaking the ice. Do you prefer milk chocolate or dark chocolate?
That's important.
It is very important.
Yeah, I have one problem in life. That's chocolate. I always tend to move into the milk chocolate, not the dark chocolate.
Okay.
And that's a huge challenge for me, because I should eat dark chocolate, of course, due to health reasons and lower fat and better fat and things. But I can't.
So it is more existential than I thought. But you can eat dark chocolate every now and then, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So then you are in our team. I always say in my house I have two special shelves in my kitchen, one for tea and one for chocolate. And honestly, I have like maybe 70 boxes of different teas, and chocolate is the same. And every time I travel, I buy local chocolates. It's like my little hobby. But we are not here in this interview to speak about my little hobbies, but to speak about you. So maybe you want to share with us a story about these transitions that you have mentioned just some minutes ago. From you say, I'm not the same leader I was 20 years ago.
I was brought up in the business life, thinking that and giving at least the impression, and also the leaders I had around me was very much the experience I received was that a leader or a leader's norms are that you should be a bit distanced when you lead other people. You should always try to be a little bit better than your employees. You need to be have a distance in relationships. You should also be a little tough. and they be able to make hard decisions and that's sort of and also be another person than you are at home. For so you should have a shield in front of you. That was the at least the picture I got when I started, and I also saw around me from other leaders. I was very young. I was around 30 when I got my first role as a leader, and I continued to use that, and it was in one way or another sort of successful in that I achieved my targets and so on. But during life, many people around me said that, well, you must be fantastic to be Gerhard. You are so successful and so and so, and your career is moving very, very strongly. And I performed rather well. But in the middle of life, or whatever middle of life is, I experienced a personal crisis. I was on the outside a successful guy, but on my inner side, I was very, very sad and felt unlucky and felt very sorry for myself and not happy at all. I started to work with myself at that time. This is 20 years ago now, in therapy. And during that period of therapy, it was the sort of the starting point was a divorce, but it went out to become a life change process where I started to understand that my childhood had given me a lot of feelings about not being good enough, not being loved, and all these aspects of life had also created me a person that I didn't really like. I wanted to become successful for whatever price it would cost them. So during this process, it happened something with me. I started to find my inner core values. And the core values was completely different from what I have sort of used in my leadership before. I also found out that I can not only work. I spent all my time on work at that time because I thought that was the only reason for me to survive. I wasn't good enough. That was my feeling. I need to work much harder than others because I'm not as good as they are, and so on. And that was very much influencing my life and my style of leading. I worked hard. I worked harder than anyone else, and I thought work is the only thing that could be sort of identify my life. That changed then when I found my core values, and based on my core values, I found out that life is much more than work. There are other things that needs to be incorporated for me if I should feel safe and trustworthy, and also be a person that I like myself. And in that process, I also found out that leading with fear, or leading with this more of having being another person than I normally is, was not the way I should do it. I should change my role as a leader, and I did. And I changed it towards that I think a leader must be open, have strong self-insights, self-awareness. I started to build up close relationships instead of distant relationships with my employees. I started to show that I'm not good at everything. I'm also a person. I had a mission of being exactly the same person 24/7 as well. At that time, I sort of found out that this empathic leadership model is the way forward. And then I created a model for this.
That's fantastic to hear. I want to recap a couple of the things you have said just to make sure that I'm following the red thread. So what I heard you saying to begin with is that you were following kind of some rules or mainstream traditions of leadership that you learned 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's not that those models are necessarily wrong or right, because they gave you success in one way or the other. But there was a moment where those conventional assumptions of leadership were not sufficient for what you were craving in the inside. And then you mentioned as well a personal crisis that kind of cracked this shield. The personal crisis, just crack it open, and then you could embrace a journey on the inside out. So from shifting for a more external understanding or beliefs or models of leadership, you start to turn from the inside out and say, well, I'm going to lead myself to a more aligned version of myself with, or becoming more conscious of what my values are. Exactly. And this personal transformation on the long run made you aware that there could be actually a new model of leadership that was more personal or wholehearted and so on. And you also mentioned, of course, many different elements that were important in this transition, such as taking the opportunity to ask for support, be it therapy or any other things, which is more about you made like a journey of embracing your humanity. And that's what you brought back to the office as well, when you say, maybe I can be more human with my colleagues or my employees and try to stand into a place of being more vulnerable. And you have also mentioned important notions such as insights, like reflection, awareness, that I guess are part of your model of empathetic leadership. Am I following?
Yeah, you're perfectly right.
That being said, maybe you could share with us a little bit about this model of empathetic leadership. I suggest a place to start with, and it's from what I know of your model of empathetic leadership, balance. This notion of balance is one of the key concepts. So I suggest that we start diving into your model of empathetic leadership from there.
Very good. Yeah. No, actually, the reason why I then started to think of creating a model was that I saw that the results of my change in leadership style. That doesn't mean that the old-fashioned model is not working at all, as you said, Olga. It's a matter of, it's not black and white, but I think this model that we will go into now is just creating a high degree of motivation, inclusiveness, and willingness to contribute. And the basis for it was actually that I started to think of life as the life is. And what is that? Is that you have one life. You cannot live one life at work, one at home, and one with friends and so on. It's the same life. And you need to, in one way or another, coordinate it, I would say. So I've might be a little bit strange to think of this more human question as a structural thing, but I think it's good to have a structure and also have a model for it, because then it gets clearer for you. So therefore I created what I call the balanced life card, and the balanced life card is based on the Toyota model since the 60s of building up a strategic house for a company, and this is a strategic platform for yourself. Based on the ground level, where you have your core values. You have to find out what is really important for you in life. Everyone needs to have a sort of a feel that they contribute to something. It doesn't link directly to making a career. Absolutely not. It's just to being demanded from others and so on, and doing something good. So the personal vision that I wrote was based on that how should I would like to be remembered when I one day will die. Hopefully not today, but some other day. I hope not. and I think that was, and when I had made that sort of story about my own life, I had quite an easy way forward to find what should I then do to achieve this sort of vision that I have with my life. And then from there, I then created three sort of legs. The symbolic point with these three legs is that you need to invest in all three legs to have a balance in your house. If you don't just invest in two of them, you will have an unbalanced house, and then you will create some problems for yourself. And the three legs are, one is about work or meaningful occupation, as I call it. You can just something that you go to and work with, or whatever you do. I think that's important for everyone, whatever you choose to do. The other leg is, I call this family, but what I mean with that is the closest, the near relationships that you need. You need to invest in close relationships. That doesn't matter that you need to go and marry and have 2 children. You can have that in different aspects. And I've learned myself that journey, finding my spots of really close relationships that build you up. And the third leg is that you need to invest in your own. In a way, every one of us is alone. We are born alone and we will die alone in one way or another. Therefore, it's very important to, and that could be whatever it is. For some people, that means that you have to invest in traveling or some sort of easy things, or it could be mindfulness, or it could be things that whatever it is. And all these 3 legs needs to be in one way or another balanced, I think. But also there's another thing that's why it's so important to, as a leader, to invest in a balanced life, because my absolute, I'm convinced that many leaders are not independent leaders, because they invest too much time on one of the legs, work. And especially as a leader, you get identified with your work. Your personal identity is very much linked to your work. And as soon as you have that link, you are not independent any longer as a decision maker or a leader. Therefore, the 3 legs are also very, very crucial to become a true world-class leader that can make independent decisions. That's best for the organization. So that's the sort of basic for this balanced life card.
And it's very fascinating to listen. I got a lot of little pop-up insights about my own life, and I was wondering, what other tips or suggestions you have for us young leaders in a way.
Now, I meet a lot of potential strong, high performance leaders and so on, and I think, I'm thinking like this, that I would have been so glad and happy if I had got some advice when I was a young leader, that do these small changes already now, and you will have a sort of a more I think better life is maybe the wrong words, but at least a more balanced and holistic approach to life. So my advice is just that life isn't easy. Of course, there are many challenges out there, and we have a lot of things that we want to do. Please take your life seriously when you're young, and that means that you should invest in your own time, creating some sort of plan for your own life. You don't have to use my model at all, because some people want to do it in other ways. Of course, that's not the point. The point is that you should already now, when you're young, try to understand what are your vision and your ambitions with life. That doesn't mean that you should reach or earn a lot of money. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with your own life, and base it on your core values. Do it before you get the partial prize, and create that model, and create a sort of a plan for what you need to do then to fulfill that. Then, of course, things are happening, and I always get the question, well, I guess I have 3 children at home and a wife or a man, and there are life is hectic. Yes, life is hectic, and you cannot live in balance every day. But if you don't have a plan, it's like a company. If you don't have a strategy plan for a company, it goes wherever it goes. But if you have a plan, you tend to follow it more than others, at least. So I would suggest that you start with that. And some people need help out. And I mean, we go for health inspections and do a lot of things for our physical health. And this is something that I would also say, go and invest in yourself. Try to find out what your core values are. Maybe you need a therapist, or you need someone else to find out what's really in there, what's important for you, what is your background, what is your instincts, and not really what you want to do. So you find out.
One of the most, like, all the information you have shared is fascinating, but I really felt it really touched me when you said take your life seriously, because we just have one life. Work is one of the main tools that we use to achieve meaning or purpose or values. But what I hear you saying is that you are suggesting to us young leaders to take this question of the purpose of life or meaning in a wider spectrum, to take care of getting to know ourselves. What are our values, or how can we align more with the things that that responds to who we genuinely are.
Yeah, exactly.
And that sounds very beautifully said, but getting to know or getting to be as genuine as possible takes a lot of hard work in a way. So another tool you were suggesting is, it could be therapy for someone else, it could be another sort of mentoring, coaching, community.
Absolutely.
But that I also get this connecting to one of the other legs of your balance card model, that there are some close relationships that can really support us in this process of being as aligned to our values as we are. And as you said something also that made me remember, 2 days ago, I was in Bergen teaching a workshop about compassion, and we were speaking in this workshop about each of us will have our own turn to be vulnerable. So we cannot really know which are the life crises that we will live or not, but we can anticipate in a way, or prepare for when this crisis that might or not come. And if we are so focused in developing a career, we might be even provoking some. Yeah, we might not be caring enough of other aspects that might, when the crisis come, we are not as ready as we thought we would be, in a way.
Absolutely. No, exactly. This is also a way of prepare yourself for the. I mean, life is volatile. It goes up and down. That's the way we are created as human beings, and that's part of our developing process. But this is a way of preparing, because when you have learned yourself and your inner values, you can sort of guide yourself much better.
That's
and I also think that because if you don't do this, you will be so much more influenced by external factors all the time. You don't know where to guide yourself. You don't have that guidance if you don't have really control of what is right or wrong for you. Otherwise, you will be influenced by things happening all the time and not having your own direction in life.
Like, I got the image when you were talking about, like, kind of an anchor that is inside, so that we are not depending all the time of the conditions of the environment or the right investment or the right person to be there, but just to be right for ourselves. And in this kind of human way, try to be as best leaders as we can be, in a way.
You said work is a part of creating meaning, and that's true. But why is it that? Well, my view on that is that what is meaning of life? This is a highly existential question that we can discuss for long. But one of the reasons, at least, are relationships. Being together with others, being in a community, being in an environment where you connect with other people, and the easy way for many people is work, of course. That's why it's so important, I think. But it's not only that. It's in all these three legs that I sort of described. Connections in different ways will be important.
Right. Yeah. So this transformation from seeing work as a goal or something I need to perform or some money I need to achieve, to also seeing that at work is also and mainly about making deep connections with those who are with us on this, whatever is the mission of a company. We were speaking just about that in our workshop about compassion. Many people work in healthcare companies, so they are very busy with patients, with clients, but this sense of exhaustion is not easy to handle, where they also would like to connect deeper with their patients or with their colleagues. So this aspect of human connection is is in all these three legs of your model. I see. Connecting more with the people at work, with whoever are your close relationships, family, friends, romantic relationships, or the other one is connecting also to yourself, or for people who have any kind of spiritual journey, this connecting with yourself might also represent connecting with God.
True. That's why I mean every leg has a connection to something, and connect to yourself, your inner soul is so crucial to be able to connect to other people. If you're not feeling stable and satisfied internally, you will not be able to connect in really deep relationships, and that's what creates meaning, I mean, in life.
So if we could say in a nutshell, empathetic leadership is about turning inwards and trying to be as congruent as you can as a person with your values, and from that, not just it's about teaching what we are preaching in a way, or walking the talk, being congruent as a person is kind of the path of the empathetic leader, because empathy is not something you can fake, but something you can model in a way, if I am understanding.
Now you're absolutely right. You are if you follow this model and live it 100%. My belief is that you are a very congruent person, that you follow your core values, that you will be very trustful, and people will see you as very honest and authentic, and you will also be that, and that means that it creates a lot of good benefits in an organization.
And now, as we are moving to the conclusive part of this interview or call, I'm curious, from what I know of your book, it's not just about being an empathetic leader. It's also your awareness as a CEO of such a big company that this has an impact, that this produces results in an organizational environment. So maybe you can share with us a short story of how have you seen the impact of this approach to leadership in your own company? How do your employees experience it?
Yeah, what I think is that if I go just to my own experiences of what happens then, in a general point of view, it creates, I think, as I said, when yourself are open, authentic, show weakness, and admit that you don't know everything and all that, you create in your own group, you create soon an environment of trust, that people in a way wants to contribute because they feel safe with you. They also can ask the let's say the stupid question. They can challenge you because they feel trust, and they also feel that there is no hidden agenda. All these these are difficult to measure, of course, but what it does create is motivation and innovation capacity. Also a preparation for change, because change will not be so scary any longer. And all this together, I mean, will increase efficiency and productivity in an organization, because we will lower the amount of time we spend on thinking what is now going on in this organization. What did he really mean when he said that? Why is he not doing what was expected, and so on? And that's so much leakage in an organization that we can stop through this type of open leadership model.
Okay.
And I can see it in Kavli, where we have had the best results ever during the past 7-8 years. And I think that's not only the reason, of course, it's always difficult to understand or measure what is the reason for things, but I think that part of the success.
Okay, and that makes a lot of sense, that people are aware that this has a meaning or an effect in the company, although, as we have emphasized a little bit before in the interview, it's not something you can fake, and that's kind of the biggest challenge That if a person, the CEO of another company says, oh, that has worked for Kavli, now I'm going to be so empathetic and I'm going to fake it so much that my employees will be more effective. This is not like the way the leakage is sorted out. So that's kind of the beauty and the challenge of the transformation of leadership models, is that the only way to do it is get through it in a way. And that's what I'm also looking forward to see, how this leadership model will support the transformation of different organizations. Maybe in the last minutes of this call, we can, I have 2 questions. Let me organize my mind. The first one maybe could be, what kind of practices or rituals or events or can an organization use as tool to make their employees and their leaders more empathetic or more connected? Like, I don't know exactly what you do at Kavli to promote this. We have spoken a lot about your process inwards, but
right. No, I think this. Well, the good story about this leadership model is that I'm convinced that it gives a huge effect on the organization. Then maybe the other side of it is it not a quick fix. It's not easy, and it needs huge efforts from all leaders and all employees in a way as well, because we demand a lot from them. I don't think it's a lot in a way, but it's a lot compared to other organizations. So what we have done is that we started with my senior management team. I'm telling my own story about my life, very open. We started with coaching. We started with measuring emotional intelligence in different ways, tried to get people to learn about themselves. We made 360 surveys with their organization. And then we have sort of continued that approach down to middle management and production management and the whole organization, and worked regular on this. We have established a couple of rules that this should include. Everyone should have one-to-one meetings on a regular basis without agenda. We have trained them, and of course, how to have these meetings. We have continued with coaching and group coaching, and it's an ongoing game in a way. Where I always try to both remind everyone that this is the leadership model. We have established 4 core value words that we work with that everyone should live up to. We have also included a performance matrix model that are linked to the compensation benefits that everyone receives yearly. So in our company, how is as important as what you perform, and so on. But it's I always describe this as a vision of leadership, because it's not something that you can just install overnight.
Absolutely. That's human change is not something that happens from one second to the other, but also one of the biggest transformations goes through, but it's something you need to restore and maintain and expand.
You do.
And that leads me to one mini question and then my last question, because you said you have 4 values that you have been encouraging people to live through. What are those values?
Well, there are 4 values of the Empathetic leadership model, and that's first one is authentic, and we mean being open, honest, showing weakness, not thinking that you need to know everything best of everyone. That's being authentic in this meaning, at least. The other one is conscious, being conscious of yourself, have a strong self-awareness and working with your self-insights, and also using these resources when you meet and meet other peoples and when you create relationships, being conscious how you meet different people. The third part is being mindful, as we call it, and that means that the leadership is only performed when you meet people, when you look them in your eyes, and when you really talk to them and listen to them. and being there, not through email or in the corridor or whatever. You have to invest time. That's the third part. And the fourth is balance. And balance is a wider definition here than just having balance in your life. That's part of it. We should, as a leader, we should support people being able to have balance in their life because we think that improves our performance. But it's also about how you run your group or your team. Balance for me is linked to reflection, because the only way to improve, change, doing something better than you did last time is that you get some time for reflections. And that's important for a leader to sort of secure that you have time for reflection.
Absolutely. I was actually reading in the Harvard Business Review last week about the importance of scheduling time for self-reflection as much as you schedule time for meetings. And I thought it was fantastic that they acknowledged this. Now, my last question before we close this conversation today is, what are your 3 to 5 self-care practices?
For long, I used therapy and mentorship and coaching as my way of developing. But today, I'm still doing that as well, not as often as before. But today, it's more like I need. It's very important for me to get own time. Mindfulness is something that I use on a regular basis to create time for reflection and also go into myself and connect with myself. I go to church on a regular basis, and there I meet people with the same thoughts and ideas or existential issues that I have, which means that I can connect to myself as well. It's also actually about being physical in a way. You need to admit that as well as being personal health. So I try to do that.
Yeah, it sounds very sensible and authentic as well in the way you share it, because these self-care practices show like these are interweaving these legs of the balanced life card that you was on. So it was just a test to see if you were living through it. But I want to say that I'm so grateful that we could have this conversation, and we will see when will be our next time to keep sharing and learning from you.